write the explicit rule and the recursive rule for the sequence. Now, they told us the first term is 6 and the ratio is 5, which tells me this is a geometric sequence because of the common ratio. So we have to write an explicit rule. Explicit rule is just what we have been talking about this whole time. You know, anytime you've written a geometric sequence, it has been explicit. So that's why, you know, we recognize this formula right here where we need our first term and we need a ratio, which are the two things they gave us. So we can go ahead and write this rule. A sub n equals our first term is 6. Multiply that by the common ratio, which is 5. And raise that to the n minus 1 power. And that actually is all we can do to simplify that. So there's the explicit rule. That's what we've been doing. Now we get to recursive rules. And a recursive rule is just a different way of writing a rule for the same sequence. You know, it's kind of the same idea of you have slope-intercept form and standard form. Those are equations of a line, and it's for the same line, just different ways to write it. So what we have to remember about recursive rules is you have to tell people where to start, because recursive rules build on the term before it. So if people don't know, well, what even starts out the sequence, they're not going to have any clue how to get this. So you have to identify the first term, and a sub 1 is 6, and then we can do the rule. So what the rule tells us, okay, now that we know the first term, what are we going to do to that 6 to get the next term? And I actually may look at this. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Let's remember when we see this a sub n minus 1, that's just another way of writing that's the previous term. So the rule tells us you take the previous term and multiply it by your ratio. Well, since we know the ratio is 5, we're going to say the rule is take 5 and multiply it by your previous term, which is a sub n minus 1. So if we think about how this is going to work, we start out with a 6, that's our first term, and then the rule says, okay, take your previous term, which is a 6, multiply it by 5 to get 30. Now to get the next term, take your previous term, which is a 30, multiply it by 5 to get 150, and so on. So we're able to get the next term of the sequence building off of the previous term that we know. Don't forget, though, that we do have to tell people where to start. We have to identify the first term, and then the rule just tells us what are you going to do to that previous term to get the next term.